Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is June 15th here in the United States, 2018, but it's the 16th where Henrik is. Is that correct, Henrik?
Yes, it is.
Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate your company as always on our Friday night show. I'll get into a couple of space weather reports, and then we'll get into some of these articles. And I have a doozy for you guys here at the end of tonight's broadcast. So we saved the best for last here. Our current solar wind speeds is 302.1 kilometers per second with a density of 6.8. This has been some slow-moving solar wind in the past really 2 to 3 days. AR 2713 is hanging on by a thread. It still poses no threats for any strong solar flares. And I looked at the solar influx earlier, and it has been quiet as a mouse. So still looking at KP indices at 1. Our 24-hour max is also at a 1. And again, looking at the KP indices over the last 2 to 3 days, we've had a peak of 2, maybe twice. And the rest of the time, we've been at 0 and 1. So very low activity from our star right now. And that could all change as well. But taking a look at our sun right now and the SDO in motion, as I always like to kind of show you guys the perspective of what we look at. We got that coronal hole in the northern part of our star that might brush the northern part of our magnetic field. And so they're not looking at like a G1 or anything like that, just some minor increase of solar wind possible from that on June 18th is when it's scheduled to hit Earth. Now, there is that sunspot, AR 2713, that's becoming Earth-facing. I have to do this because there could be a correlation. There could not be. I could be wrong on this. But I wanted to give a quick shout out to Thor News. He's not really a channel that talks about minimums or cooling or anything like that. He just kind of reports on the weather. So he's more like a YouTube weatherman, but he likes to explore the space aspect of things as well. And today he kind of brought up something, and I was like, oh, he's connecting the dots as well. And he's talking about this sunspot that's becoming Earth facing. And now this sunspot is not as big as the one that we saw back in September of 2017, right before Harvey hit. And Harvey was such an intense development and so fast. But TSI dropped as well during that time frame of Harvey. So it'll be interesting to see how this sunspot actually interacts with our planet as it becomes Earth-facing. We do have some storms. Tropical Storm Bud now has been downgraded, I think, to a depression. And then we have this mystery development that could happen in the Gulf. So no one's really talked about the sun, the aspect of that yet. And I just thought I'd say a quick hello to him and, a good point as far as trying to tie this possible storm that could be played a factor by this possible Earth-facing sunspot, which by the time we do see the effects of it, it's going to be closer to the 19th, but still, he's in the ballpark when it comes to the storm that he thought that was going to hit the Texas Gulf Coast region. And taking a look at our TSI reading for today, we are dropping back down to 1360.6463. And that measurement is on the 6-hour average time series. Last measurement came in for June 7th, 2018. And the first story I want to talk about real quick, I found this interesting. This was brought to my attention this morning from our GSM chat. Rocks beneath eastern seaboard could cause major problems during solar storms, USGS finds. So it's a 300-million-year-old rock beneath the I-95 corridor that could make a large solar storm even worse, a new USGS report found. That's because the rock would send the energy back up to the surface, doubling the impacts. The scientists have said the study will help grid operators better understand what could happen during a severe geomagnetic storm. Now, it reads here, the makeup of the Earth beneath Interstate 95 corridor could prove especially problematic in the event of a major solar storm. According to Bloomberg, a soon-to-be-released report had found a 300-million-old rock beneath the surface of the eastern seaboard could amplify the next big solar storm, all the way from D.C. to Maine. The makeup of this rock wouldn't allow solar energy to go through it and would instead ricochet it back up into the surface, doubling the impacts in this region. It's an active problem that a lot of people are trying to solve and understand. Space Weather Prediction Center scientist Christopher Balch. Anyway, strange. It's believed that a type of geomagnetic storm capable of wiping out the grid happens once every century, but at worst case scenario, might result in a widespread blackouts that could last for months. Good find here, Rob. Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention, and looking forward to the paper when it does come out. But this is just another aspect that we used to really talk about a lot on the Grand Solar Minimum channel, and here lately it's been more volcanic and weather related. But interesting to see an article talking about how a rock that's 300 million years old could intensify a severe solar storm all the way from Washington, D.C. to Maine. That's a lot of area. And you got to think about how many millions of people would be affected by this. You're talking about Philadelphia is in that area, D.C. itself, Baltimore. You've got New York City, Atlantic City, New Jersey, Boston, all these major cities in the Northeast with millions of people that live there, the populations. So at a time right now that we're in, Grand Solar Minimum, we're heading into it. We're seeing weaker magnetic connections, and our magnetic field is weaker now, allowing more cosmic rays, whatever space weather that wants to come through is coming through right now. So in a time where we're not supposed to be looking at a lot of activity from the sun, this is also one of our most vulnerable times as well. And think about what happened in the Carrington event. How bad would that be right now? Because back then we didn't have the power grids and the wiring that we do now. So just imagine, Henrik, everything that would get fried if we had an event like a Harrington or another Carrington event.
Yeah, it would be devastating. I think you and I, or should I say people over 40, I think we will take it okay, but people who are been growing up with all the technology and who have never tried other things, they will go in panic immediately.
Well, we've talked about it in previous episodes back as far as last year, where power grid could be down for months at a time if a solar storm was strong enough. Did I?
Sorry to interrupt, but I saw that you did that.
Henrik, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear, but I'm trying to hear what Mari is saying.
It's because you have the desktop audio on. Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. So I'm good. We're good then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. I forgot what I was saying, but I think it was along the lines of, it could take months to years to get these grids back on track. And here in this Weather Channel app or article, I should say, it does mention the fact that, we could be facing months without the grid. So interesting that Weather Channel, because this Weather Channel is 100% man-made global warming supporter. And, if they start correlating information about the sun and the minimums and the solar storms that could be possible, then they have to start looking at the other aspects of this as well, which comes with the climate, because we see more and more evidence that shows that the sun is tied in with the climate. And here is a article that Henrik showed me right before we went on, and this is off of Piers Corbin's website, Weather Action News. But a new study, the sun and volcanoes cause the pause. Got it. All warming is CO2, but cooling, we can blame everything else because reasons. Well, here we go. Has the media been trying to bury bad news here? Embarrassingly bad news for the enthusiasm for man-made global warming, that is. Last week, a team of researchers in the UK Met Office, the University of East Anglia, Angelina, maybe, I don't know, Anglia, I like that. The University of Gothenburg, the University of Southern Queensland, and the Sorbonne published in the journal Science Advances. An interesting paper showing that the recent, much debated and researched 21st century slowdown in global surface temperatures was real and could be explained by reduced solar activity and increased volcanic counteracting climate forcing from greenhouse gases. Now, I appreciate this article because this is kind of like weaning a alcoholic off of alcohol here. They're now acknowledging the connections between lower solar activity and volcanic activity as well. And now they're associating it to cooling. They're still clinging on to this whole greenhouse gases causing warming and all that stuff, but that's fine. At least they're highlighting the important details in this article. And, you know, Piers Corbin, his website has chock full of tons of great information here. But yeah, I see the slow, but someone called it the other day, baby steps of disclosure that's coming out. And here's another example of baby steps. We are starting to see the correlation being made now in new studies coming up left and right that lower solar activity and volcanic activity also have a hand in cooling right now. And speaking of volcanoes, I just wanted to read this real quick. Just 36 minutes ago, here's a status update on Kilauea volcanoes, lower East Rift Zone. Lava fountains from Fissure 8 reached heights of 200 feet overnight. The cinder and spatter cone that is building around the fissure is now about 160 feet at its highest point. Lava flowing through the well-established channel from Fissure 8 to the ocean of Kapuhu. Occasionally, lava spills over the channel and channel levees. I'm sorry. We just also had, I thought, another small explosion here. The plume, which rose to only 6,000 feet, so very minimal, but still activity happening in and around the areas of Kilauea as this continues to carry on. And more of a detailed update you can find in the description box, as I have the link here to the actual volcanoes.usgs.gov. I've been using this for the most part. In fact, everything I just read from you off of Facebook is exactly here on the official site. I just wanted to give everybody the official contact here for that update. All right, and moving on a little bit here, another article that I found as well, whether I think actually, what's that? Oh, sorry, my dog. I think this might have been another one that Rob might have suggested again, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, whether the sun is minimum, here are the possibilities, consequences on summer of 2018 and winter 2019 hypothesis. Now, this is coming from a Italian meteorologist, I believe, but it is the news these days. Our beloved sun has reached its deepest solar minimum. We are talking about sunspot count, indicating the activity of our star. Less stains are there and less heat comes from the sun. The more spots they are, the stronger the energy is. It is now for months that spots on the sun have been very few or no. So we now have the certainty of being in the peak or the off-peak period. So let's see what we can expect. Now, they're saying most climatologists believe that the last event of this kind took place between 1645 and 1750 during the Maunder Minimum, the Little Ice Age, where the global average temperature dropped by 1.3 Celsius. This causing massive waves of frost on many European countries, and not only for many years. With these premises, it is self-evident to think with these conditions in place, the Earth's climate is gradually cooling down, probably leading us to live through another small ice age. And the powerful strat warming, half abnormal stratosphere overheating, occurred in the middle of February, and this start of the turbulent summer could only be a small appetizer of a wider change. So be careful. If the sun does not wake up, winter could be closer than you think. And just, I wanted to point this out. Another story that's making it out there. These journalists who are writing these things now are courageous to go against these old school textbook weatherman books that you read in college, and finally starting to listen to some of the news science that's coming out, some of the news studies that's coming out. And this guy here is he's right on point. This grand minimum that we're hitting into is being compared to so far a monitor-like minimum. And we thought in the beginning of this, when I first started covering this, I thought it was going to be more like a Dalton minimum. You know, I remember telling people that this could be a soft landing. You know, I just couldn't believe the acceleration that we've seen with temperature loss. And, you know, quickly, I'll break off of what I'm doing here just to kind of go over some ocean anomalies here. Another drop today on the 15th. We're down to negative 0.911 Celsius below baseline. Here's another reading. The Caribbean is down again to negative 7.706. So those are two pretty big regions that aren't supposed to be cooling right now like this. And then again, of course, the North Atlantic, where we are sitting once again, falling almost at a point 0.6 again, just within the last 3 weeks, we've seen that value now at least 4 times. So, you know, when I see articles like this, I have to take note, and I wanted to share this with everybody. I think its importance is that people around the world are starting to see the real truth of what's happening right now. And I don't know about you. Was there, did you guys get the rain? I heard maybe you guys had some severe weather that came through the area not too long ago, Henrik.
Yeah, I was wondering what all the fuss was about when I started tweeting. Twitter, sorry. So I was on the internet, of course, but there was nothing as usual. Everything was like it always is in Denmark, you know, in the summertime. Some part of the country have sunshine and some part of the country have cloudy weather. But I can tell you that right now, 67 cities around Denmark are not allowed to use open fire because there is a drought, you know.
Wow.
And the farmers in the most country, the drought is a disaster for the farmers. A lot of sunshine is costing the millions of Danish crowns, and the field needs about 30 millimeters of water right now, and it's like right now. And I also have another thing. Sorry here. Farmer has watering 84,000 cubic meters since the drought began in Denmark, and they have gotten extraordinary bills of 50,000 kroner for electricity, and that is only the cheap ones, you know. This is farmers who have their own drills. Farmers who don't have their own drills, they also have to use money for the water, you know. So I saw an article the other day where a lot of farmers was complaining, you know, because they have already now lost up to over 30% of whatever they have in the field, you know, and everything is not so good. So they are praying for water, and I can see if we are a little bit lucky, there will come a little bit rain tomorrow and Sunday and Monday. But again, it's so locally in Denmark. In another city in Denmark, in Jylland, the other day, there was falling 100 millimeters of rain in 2 hours. And other places don't get anything at all, you know. So it's not so good. But I can tell you that the Danish beer company, Carlsberg, is very happy because they have the best May in 10 years. They have never sold so many beer in May month in 10 years. And now we have the World Cup in football, you know. That is gonna helping a lot, you know, because Danish people and football, well, then we gotta have beer. And if we got the time, I will talk about today a little bit of football, just a little bit, because, you know, the Danish people are in the World Cup. Especially me, I hate soccer, I hate football, but I have to say why we will win it.
Well, you've earned that right. Your country's playing in the tournament, I believe. The United States is not. So we'll definitely touch base with that. I was giving Starman a little guff the other night about calling it soccer and not football, but again, just like the rest of the world, we're the only ones that call it soccer here in America, just like how we're the only ones that read the temperature in Fahrenheit. So,
well, I know why you call it soccer, because it sucks.
well, now you're getting us in trouble.
Well, I don't care. I don't mind. I don't need the time. I mean, if it's on the radio, I love to hear it when I'm doing something, but I'm not the type who could sit down and watch a football game. No way. But I heard you got over there Father's Day, and then you also got Father's Day weekend, or what?
Yeah, Father's Day weekend. I'll tell you, finally for us, I know where I live, we're actually going to be able to do some actual summer activities, as we're going to see temperatures that would be, let's see, 80 degrees, 86 degrees by Sunday. So you're talking probably like 26 degrees Celsius if you were in Denmark, I guess. So it's pretty warm for us. We've seen some cooler weather. We've had some warmer days too. I think we've had more warmer days so far in 2018, the summer of, but I kind of expected that, and I think a lot of us did too. But quickly, I want to switch back to much refreshing stuff like 6 feet of snow in Canada's easternmost province of Newfoundland and Labrador is experiencing anonymously high June snow this year, and frozen lakes making both locals and meteorologists nickname the month January because it looks more like January than June. It says here that we're looking at, look, this is there's not much you can do with 6 feet of snow. Frozen lake, igloo lake. Operator Jim Burton told CBC, I can think of a few things, but it's not uncommon to see snow around the lodge, but not 6 feet of snow. And this is the second time that we've heard statements like this. In Fairbanks, we had 8 inches of snowfall in Alaska. And they, this is not uncommon to see that, but, we normally get 1 or 2 inches, not 6 to 8 inches. So this is an anomaly. Unprecedented ice and snow is given this time of year. We've been as late as the 10th of June. So they've already had a new, as far as how late in June they get this kind of snow, they've set a record there. But shockingly, 6 feet of snow. Can only imagine what the melt's going to be like and the flooding issues they might run into later on this summer. And Brazil, same thing, from heat to freezing in 2 days. Possibly snow in some areas. This is from Robert Felix's website, iceagenow.info. Rio Grande do Sul has issued a warning about the possibility of frost and negative temperatures in various regions of the state between Wednesday the 13th and Saturday the 16th. Temperatures became negative in several areas of the state, as in the Campaign, the Missions, and the Siragacha. There is the possibility of snow in some places, according to residents of the interior state. And in the Pampas region, where there is intense agricultural activity. People are frightened by the sudden variations in the climate and the ferocity of the vents. So it sounds like to me that they're worried, especially for the frost at this time of the year, what kind of damage is it going to do to crops? So many places that we've seen crop damage this late in the summer, places further up north as well in Canada, we just saw ice everywhere. And here we have another tropical cyclone hitting Taiwan and heading for Japan.
Hello?
I just feel like that, not to try to exaggerate the weather headlines, but I sit back and I try to remember what watching the weather was like back in 1990 or 1995 or 2000, 2005. And I remember when Katrina hit and how devastating it was. And the criticism that we got for the lack of response on the victims down there in the New Orleans area. And my initial thought was always, well, we've never seen anything like this before. Now I'm not knocked off. You there?
Hello?
Okay, something weird just happened to our screen. You might want to.
Yeah, and you disappeared. I couldn't hear you suddenly for a minute or a minute and a half.
So it looks like Deep State is attacking us.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody got knocked off. I don't know. How long you think we were offline for there, Henrik?
A minute to a minute and a half.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, I was babbling along about.
It felt like it's that long.
Wow. Yeah, having some internet issues. You know, I'll tell you what. Before I get knocked offline real quick, I was going to cover a couple other headlines, but let's get to the point. I got a video clip I want to show first, though, off of Fox News, Fox Business News, I should say. I'll just play like the first half of it, but this is the gentleman from Climate Depot, Mark Moreno. He was interviewed today on Fox Business. And, of course, yesterday, and Henrik, you did a really nice job of, you found various channels talking about this massive loss of ice in Antarctica. So here is the Fox Business News folks here talking to Mark Moreno about that real quick. Oh, I got to share the screen again. Bear with me, folks. Oh, this is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, this is absolutely false.
Nope. Do you want me to do it? Nope, 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 nope. Here, give me the thing.
So we have Henrik. And then we have me.
Yes,
Well, how did it happen, G?
I don't know. It knocked us off.
You're supposed to share this one.
All right. Sorry, folks.
And then hit present.
Okay, she's got it. Thank you, Mari, as always. Don't know how I do the show.
A new study suggests Antarctic ice is melting at triple the speed.
Can you hear this, Henrik?
Okay, so
yes.
the pace of melt has speeded up dramatically. That's a new report. Joining us now is ClimateDepot.com founder Mark Moreno, who is a climate change skeptic. Now, what do you say? I mean, I read this in the New York Times, big picture of Antarctica. Yeah. The ice is melting, double the speed or triple the speed. Sea level rates are rising. They say it's because of human activity. What say you?
Well, first of all, the New York Times article had to issue multiple corrections because they had all kinds of different claims in the article. Second of all, in my new book, The Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change, I go back and show that in 1901, 1922, then 1979, and 2014, 2018, that they have come up with Antarctic hype melt scenarios over and over. And I also point out that in 2015, a NASA study showed Antarctica was gaining ice and actually contributing to a sea level lowering. So this new study, which, by the way, used observational data, but to enhance that, they used models, climate models, not even actual data. They actually simulated what they thought the conditions of the ice were, which gives them a huge fudge factor. But keep in mind, this is only over a decade or so, very short time scale, and then they extrapolate out into the future all these scare scenarios. Now again, 1901, 1922, the media hyping biblical deluge of North America, of Europe, all based on Antarctic ice melts. Antarctica is their go-to scare. The reality is Antarctic sea ice was predicted to decline years ago, and then we had record amounts. Then they said sea ice was increasing sea ice is consistent with global warming. So they're jumping all over, but this latest study flies in the face of previous studies, including NASA's.
Well, okay, Mark, let me wrap this all up and generalize.
Yes.
We are told that climate change, that the climate is changing. You can call it weather if you like, but let's call it climate change. And it's happening because of, in part, human activity. Do you dismiss that premise entirely?
Well, no, I don't. And here's a simple way of putting it. There are hundreds of factors that influence the climate. Human emissions of carbon dioxide are but one, and you cannot distinguish humans' impact from the natural variability. And there's nothing unusual going on in the climate, including hurricanes, floods, droughts, tornadoes. I detail in the book that these are all on either no trend or declining trend on climate timescales. One of the things in this Antarctica study, they'll go 5 or 10 years, try to cherry pick a time frame, and then extrapolate 100 years in the future and come up with doom. But if you look at the last 100 years of sea level rise, there's no acceleration according to tide gauges, but they keep coming up with scare after scare in the media and these studies that come out because the scientists are driven to, they want to get headlines and attention. And it's speculation, Stuart. It's all speculation about the future.
I'm sure you've seen this, Mark, but for the benefit of our viewers who have not, I'll relate the story. The Berkeley City Council, they have declared a climate emergency. They say mass extinction, I think it's of human beings, is coming, and they're pushing for population control. React to that, please, Mark.
Well, in my book, I go back to the 1960s and I show that no matter the environmental scare, starting with Paul Ehrlich's overpopulation scare back in the 1960s, resource scarcity, famines coming, all sorts of calamities, they always had the same solutions, no matter the environmental scare. Overpopulation, global cooling, rainforest deforestation. They always wanted central power, redistribution of wealth, and global governance. And now the Berkeley City Council is following that same line, even though the new projections of population are showing a declining population as we go forward in the 21st century. But more importantly, their own governor, Jerry Brown, has said global warming will kill 3 billion people. So here's the problem. Berkeley City Council is worried that overpopulation is going to lead to global warming, but their own governor is saying that global warming is going to kill 3 billion people. Problem solved, Stuart. Global warming will kill the excess population.
Wow. So yesterday there was a slew of channels on YouTube that talked about this particular story about the ice. Today on Fox Business, I'm glad to see that that Mark got on Fox Business today and talked a little bit about, and he was very broad about, he wasn't trying to be too radical. I believe him when he said that, you know, there's 100 different factors that go into the climate and the weather, and that carbon is just one of many. And in any way did that mean that he believes that, you know, CO2 is warming? It's, you know, to say that CO2 doesn't have an effect on the climate is false. To say it's warming, though, that's where the problem lies with most of the people with man-made global warming and people who look at this as a global cooling event. So I wanted to share that to kind of follow up to yesterday's big, you know, you saw Live Science fear-mongering about 3 trillion tons of ice that's been lost, but yet they forget to mention that there's 600,000 trillion metric tons of ice overall, and that the amount of ice they're talking about that Antarctica has lost is only 0.011%. So again, are you getting sick of this fear-mongering about this exaggerations of what we're actually losing?
Well, I'm happy you showed me that video there, because immediately I came to think about 2 things. You know, one thing, they know we are too many people in the world, and they will try to do everything to minimize it. And now they will blame the weather for too many people. So they will do anything that is totally crazy, I think. And then I also thought about, you remember that the scientists were paid. They were paid back in the days to tell lies about tobacco. You know how many people were involved in that project, and that is the same thing. I when I think back, it's the same today. You know, they must be paid, and yes, they are paid, because they don't get paid if they not telling about the global warming. You know, well, you know what I'm talking about, but I mean, it's so stupid.
Yeah. And, you know, I love how the host here refers to Mark as a climate change skeptic. And that's the word that we continue to hear in Trump's administration. These people like Scott Pruitt. And which leads me to my next little coverage here. I'm not going to lie. This one seriously pisses me off. And the reason why it pisses me off is because there's a couple of obvious things happening. And I'll try to be compact about this as possible. But this is why the title of the program was Donald, Please Watch, because he's already been pulled the okey doke on him once with Jim Bridenstine, who was hired at NASA to do a job that Trump thought that he understood where his administration stood, which is they don't buy into the whole man-made global warming. And then days later, Bridenstine says, "Oh well, after thinking about it, I do think man has contributed to the warming." And so, if anything, when you talk about people making Trump look bad, it's people like Jim Bridenstine that's making Trump look bad. But here we have a senator out of Oklahoma who is saying that he should leave his post. Now, this all comes from a Laura Ingraham interview that was done with this senator. And what's going on here, folks, is that Laura Ingraham, who, by the way, was considered to be a candidate for Donald Trump's Secretary of State pick. Now, I've grown not fond of Fox News ever since they've given this woman a spot on their lineup every night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. She doesn't know anything from anything, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. But here's what she said on Twitter. Bad judgment is hurting Trump and that he's got to go, talking about Pruitt. Basically, they're talking about the negative media coverage, accusations of ethics and wasteful spending, and the EPA's aggressive posture towards the press, linked to a report that said Pruitt had his aide contact Republican donors to find his wife a job. That's the first piece of lie in this story. Okay. He was not lobbying anyone to get his wife a job. Then talking more about Ingram's call for Pruitt to be replaced as EPA chief also marked one of the first times a key member of the conservative press has broken publicity from supporting him, even amid the scandals surrounding him. They're talking now, the scandals they're talking about, guys. Oh boy. I mean, this is coming from CNN, so this shouldn't surprise me. But here is what I'm going to play a little bit of this video. This is what these are the scandals we're talking about, folks.
Pruitt apparently tried to use his position as head of the Environmental Protection Agency to get his wife a franchise with Chick-fil-A. As astonishing as that sounds, even more astonishing, it's all in writing in government emails.
Okay, so if you look at these emails that Pruitt had his aides send the CEO of Chick-fil-A, nowhere in here does it say, I want you guys to give my wife a franchise. This email is simply communicating to the CEO saying, I'd like to reach out to you and show you that I have interest and my wife would like to purchase one of these franchises. But that's just the first one.
On May 16, 2017, Pruitt's former aide, Sidney Huff, from her official EPA email account, writes to Chick-fil-A CEO Dan Cathy. Administrator Pruitt asked me to reach out to you about a potential meeting. Days later, Huff sends a second message to Chick-fil-A. The administrator would like to talk about a potential business opportunity with Mr. Cathy. Pruitt's wife started the process but never became a Chick-fil-A franchisee. It is just the latest in a long string.
Because the mainstream media had smeared this as Pruitt was trying to use his power to throw around to get his wife a franchise at Chick-fil-A. And that's not the case at all, but I'll continue to play this.
Of ethically questionable moves and spending gaps that has ethics experts amazed just how Pruitt is able to hold on to his job.
It's mind-boggling how long the list of potential ethics violations are.
Earlier this week, it was revealed Pruitt sent an EPA staffer on government time to run personal errands, including asking the Trump Hotel about buying a used mattress.
Oh, no.
The list of probes or investigations into Pruitt is a long one, from leasing a D.C. condo from a lobbyist's wife below cost to spending tax dollars on first-class travel and weekend trips home, handing out jobs and pay raises to political aides, holding...
All right, I'm going to stop this witch hunt bull crap here because, first of all, first-class travel, what politician doesn't do that? So, again, we are picking trips to Italy and Morocco. Again, I don't think that these trips are not just vacations. I could be wrong. Trump has continually supported Mr. Pruitt as well. In fact, Trump has been quoted recently saying that Pruitt is doing his job just the way he should be. Jobs and raises to political aides. My God, God forbid this guy for rewarding people who do a good job for him and giving them raises. I mean, what's he thinking? Advisory board appointments. Now, what that means is that EPA official Scott Pruitt has had several meetings with fossil fuel-like companies, companies that burn coal, oil, whatever. Now the mainstream media and the Clinton News Network here is trying to spin this story as if he is being lobbied by big oil. And that's why he is relaxing the regulations here in the United States on fossil fuels. That's why they are wiping out the words global warming and climate change, because guess what? Here comes that accusation once again that someone who believes in the opposite of what mainstream science has always thought is now being accused of being bought out by an industry that has nothing to do with this. And to this day, there's frivolous lawsuits throughout the country, throughout the world, that show that these oil companies are not causing climate change. So let's get off of Pruitt just real quick, because there's more to this. Now, these people are pissed, obviously. A spokesman for the agency actually called one of the reporters a piece of trash. Hey, listen, these guys feel like they're being picked on right now because this EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt doesn't agree with man-made global warming, and he's changing a lot of policies that would support someone who actually believes that these are not factors that are causing warming on our planet. Therefore, let's relieve our citizens from paying these obnoxious taxes on carbons when they're not actually being proven that they are causing all these problems. And then you got people like Laura Ingraham. Now, you talk about someone who's throwing their weight around. Like I said, Laura Ingraham was rumored to be a possible candidate for Secretary of State. Now, bear with me, guys. The volume is very low on this, so I'll try to put the moat. But listen to her. This is her talking about cyclone, the first major storm that we got this year. I believe it was Riley, Winter Storm Riley. So I'll let you hear what she was saying here. Listen to this. This is how they minimize this. By the way, the link is in the description. You can watch the full video. I did a little piece on this on my channel.
Oh, obvious.
All right. So this isn't working out the way I'd want it, but here she is real quick. I'll get to the scene where she's making fun of winter.
This is a hard-boiled egg. We left it out overnight, and now, well, check it out. This is a nail. I choose this egg. You hear that? Almost like a hammer. That's how cold it is outside. I've got to be kidding. The egg hammer. And you order now, and you get the Ginsu knives for free. Don't tell Ronco. What a bunch of wusses. This is ridiculous.
What a bunch of wusses, she says. What a bunch of wusses. Now, this particular cold snap. Now, before this, she was also making fun of everyone using the term cyclone. Her comments after that was North Clinton. But she goes on making fun of the weatherman who was displaying a how cold it was by a hard-boiled egg that was frozen outside overnight. It was so cold they were using the egg as a nail. And her response is laughter. She wants to throw in a set of Ginsu knives in with the order with the hammer. And then to top it off of that, she calls them wusses for standing out, in this really cold, from what I can understand, has been a historic cold snap. So this just wasn't, it getting below zero one day and staying cold for a couple of days and then get back up into the 40s. This was a historic cold snap. I remember this very well. Mari and I were dealing with frozen pipes furnace problems. We got blackout warnings from our energy companies. We were told that we needed to use less energy. But this woman here is laughing about, there's nothing, no big deal about this. This is just winter. And I'll tell you something right now. It's people like her that are going to be in the ears of the president and his staffers because she has a good relationship with him. She was considered once a person of interest for Secretary of State for President Trump. So ignore your typical media chatter, Mr. Trump. Listen to your advisors that you have right now, the Scott Pruitts of the administrations. Listen to those people. They're actually doing a lot of good for not just people here in the United States, but people all over the world. The more countries that we get on board with the fact that we're dealing with a huge change in climate over the next, from now for the next 30 years, if not longer. And it's not just going to be here, it's going to be other regions as well. But what worries me the most, and I'll tell you, I've seen some outlandish things said about the president of the United States here recently, and whether you support him or not, you got to wonder. You always hear that saying, when people give you a hard time, you must be doing something right. And I just hope that he sticks with his gut on this. The reason why they scrubbed the words climate change and man-made global warming from the government websites and reports is because Trump has administration scientists, people who are telling them that we are cooling, that we are not warming, that CO2 does not cause warming, that the ocean is 95% of everything temperature and the atmosphere is the other 5%. So man-made, I think, is what point is it? 0.04%? Is that like the? So yeah, I guess if you want to say man contributes, there's your contribution, man. Your 0.041 whatever it is percent, your contribution. It just, I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting on this, Henrik, but I'm furious to see people like her using her power and throwing it around. But they're going to be on a witch hunt against Pruitt because he reached out to his CEO because his wife was interested in purchasing a Chick-fil-A franchise. And they never completed the process because look at all the backlash they got. The media spun it as, he's trying to use his power to get his wife work. But folks, in a nutshell, all this is that Scott Pruitt does not believe in man-made global warming. He's changing things. He's changing regulations. He's going to, hopefully, his changes are going to bring lower cost of energy, but also some common sense to some of our leaders out there. And more of these new studies will get the attention that it deserves. And that's my whole point of showing you this series of videos. I think what they're doing to this man is just a witch hunt. I mean, really, they're going after him for these ethics scandals. These are considered ethics scandals when we could probably accuse 90% of the politicians that are in office of traveling first class to business trips. I don't.
Yeah, and that is one of the big problems today when we're talking about this. And I hope the best for him. But today, it's so easy to talk dirty or bad about people. It's so easy, and people believe in everything, and one of the big problems in politics today is that a lot of celebrities are trying to get into politics, and that's very bad because enough politics today, they are very good about memorizing things, but they don't know crap about politics,
Right.
They have all kind of people doing their work for them. They're not doing any work themselves. The only work they do is read, and memorize, and they don't have time to figure out anything for themselves. And that's a very big problem, I think.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I did read this wrong, but you mentioned something about celebrities wanting to be politicians. I don't know if he's considered a celebrity. Some might think he's disgusting, but apparently the owner of the Bunny Ranch in Vegas ran in a Vegas primary and defeated his Republican opponent. So when you are now like, it's one thing to allow a person like Donald Trump to run for office. That's radical for a lot of people, even Republicans. I mean, you know, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's been tough to swallow what Donald Trump has been trying to feed us. But I think the big picture is going to work out in the long run. I hope. Not everything's perfect, but still, when you read stories like this, where now we're just, and not too long ago, in just an absolute disgust, because I believe it was Virginia, where there is a congressman who's running for office who has been he has a felony of a vile sex crime, was accused of it, and because of the Virginia's recent new give felons a second chance policy, this man is allowed to run for office as a Democrat because they've relaxed the felony laws, and this guy is a convicted he's a convicted sexual offender. And
yeah, well, in Denmark, all the political folks, you know, they get away with everything. You know, we got political people who have been driving drunk, you know, after 2 months, it's forgotten. We got people who have been stealing from the European funds, you know, where he take a leave for 6 months and come back and everything is okay. If that was a person in a bank or another company, you know, he will get fired immediately, you know, and get prosecuted and everything. But the political folks, no, it's okay because we are organized crime.
Well, and I think to a degree, Henrik, you know, a lot of countries, you know, unfortunately, you're not alone. But I can understand where you're coming from. Your country probably has a little bit more happening just because it's not as big. But still, that's no excuse. That's not allowed. But it happens everywhere. But getting back on track, though, you were talking about politicians, celebrities. You know, I'm not sure where we're heading from this point. The waters are getting murky when it comes to politics, and they're going to get even more murkier with the climate and the weather situation if we don't stay focused and try to keep people in place where we've got them right now. Because I think in the long run, you know, not bragging about this country, but United States has always been the leader in the world in certain things. And I think it's important that we also become the leader in how we deal with climate, how we deal with the talk of the climate, how we deal with debate about the climate, how we deal with the new studies of the new papers that are coming out. We cannot turn a blind eye anymore. We have to start acknowledging these new studies, these new peer-reviewed papers, these new things that have, like, just for instance, the UN one day says that CO2 is not warming, and the next day they say there's a plan for them to help stopping global warming. Which is it? Is it man-made or not?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's my rant.
God damn it.
Something happened again.
No. It's just I have a lot of notes and I sent you a link and now I cannot find the link or the notes. It was about the temperatures in the Antarctic and all the different stations in the South Pole also. And I was just in shock over how cold it was. It was from -8 degrees Celsius up to -48 Celsius. And it would be even colder up to -61 degrees in next week. And I cannot find the link. I would have you to put it on so people can see it when you find it, because right now I cannot find it. But I found another one here from the weather.com, a lady called Heather Tess, who says that possibly El Nino will hit this winter.
Well,
that's a bit interesting.
The temperature story there in the Antarctica, that doesn't surprise me, just because of all the record cold that we're going to be experiencing in the southern hemisphere. Australia, for one, there was an article, I meant to bring it up again today and I didn't, but it talks about how they're expecting really cold conditions over the next several years. But watching, this is the European model, by the way, here in the States, that Gulf moisture that we were kind of looking at, it seems like it's now changed its direction, and the the middle part of Mexico is going to get hit with the brunt of this. And this is going into the 22nd. So this is next week. So unless that's another tropical system, which forgive me, folks, I'm watching two different systems here. That's late next week. So this weekend, Father's Day weekend, we're going to be dealing with a storm system. With me. Technology. I know, right? It's just as simple as using a mouse. That's what they say. That is a different system. My apologies, folks. So here we have that system in the Gulf approaching Texas. And as we put this into motion, still the European models has it weakening, then getting a little bit of strength. So this is something to watch. And, you know, as well with the solar energy that we've got right now too, watch that sunspot. Will it have any correlation with this storm in the Gulf? And Bud, it seems to be it's going to make its way out of here by early next week. But also, it does look like the general area of Mexico, the Gulf Coast of it anyway, will see some persistent moisture in that region. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear about landslides and flash flood warnings as well from that particular area. I'm not really going to go into the GFS. I might do a weekly recap tomorrow on that. But really, Henrik, I wanted to give you kind of like the last few minutes here. If there was anything else that you had thought of, or if anything from the show that's kind of popped a comment that you thought of, but just wanted to know what your thoughts are for the night.
Well, it's been a good night. I can see that there is a few weather warnings for especially South Africa, Joburg, among other, expecting a cold front the next days. And then I just, of course, want to say Happy Father's Day to all people in America. In Denmark, we have another day called B&B Day, you know, Beef and Blowjob Day, and I must, I think that's a much better day. I wish we had more of those days. And people are really taking that day to them in Denmark, you know, especially all the men. We really love that day. So I'm looking forward. I cannot remember when it is, but I will be sure to tell you when it is, of course. And then I can tell you that the Danish people first fight will be against the Lama people, also called people from Peru, of course. And then after that, we will be playing against Australia and France. And you have to watch for the Danish people, because I know we are a small country, but you gotta remember there are 12 soccer fields they are playing on, and 8 out of those 12 soccer fields are being made by Danish people.
Wow.
So we got a big adventure there, because, you know, we're gonna give you so bad grass.
Well, listen, I will be an honorary Danish. I will root for Denmark in the cup, because I don't have any interest really. But for you, Henrik, in your country, let's see you guys get put on the map with this great soccer. And look, it is a great soccer tournament. It's probably the best of all tournaments. Yeah. I mean, I've been watching this since I was in high school, and I've never played the sport. I don't like it that much, but I love the passion of these fans. I love the game when these are the games that are the best to watch. So, you know, that's why I kind of reported about the rain chances that we're going to have. But I'm kind of excited. I like watching it on TV when it's the cup, but I couldn't just sit there on a regular Sunday and watch these guys kicking that ball around just for a couple of goals and a 90-minute. No. You know, it's just, you know, I start like zoning off and looking at the nice little patterns they have in their grass, and you know, I don't even concentrate on the game anymore at that point. But so no, B&B Day sounds amazing. Please let me know. Let me know when that happens. I'll mark that.
I just got a last thing to say. You know, Facebook, I begin to call everything I upload to Facebook for spam, you know, no matter what I upload. So tomorrow I will make a video called I Love Facebook, where I just shortly will say on the video, hello Facebook, I love you, and then I will upload it, and then I will record it while it will be uploaded, so everyone can see that a Facebook video is spam.
Wow.
You know, it's so crazy.
Dude, I've seen Facebook come up with these little mini 15-second videos telling me how safe we're going to be now on Facebook because they're going to get rid of all the fake news. And my question is, who's the one that's judging what's fake news and what's not?
They're not seeing it. I think someone is reporting something they don't see, and then they report it as spam, and then Facebook see the notice, okay, that's spam, well, we spam it. So then I will make that video so they can see that, well, even if I say I love Facebook, how could that be spam?
Again, I think certain channels are targeted. I know that Diamond and Silk was banned. They were popular. They were just live chat. They were conservatives and talked a lot about some of the things that Trump was doing. They actually support him. And Facebook just, I don't know. I don't know what their rhyme or reason is, what their algorithms are, but if you go against a certain agenda, and there obviously is an agenda somewhere, but if you're on that and you're going against the grain, they're going to ban you, block you, throw you off the internet, whatever they can do to suppress it. And I'm, like I said, I hope the censorship stops on this. And when you got mainstream media dicking around, what is that?
You don't want to know.
Oh my God. Okay, look, we're gonna wrap this up. It's been a lovely hour and 5 minutes with Henrik from Denmark, the Grand Solar Minimum channel over there. And
damn it, my wheelchair blower tire.
It's just not a show without Henrik cussing. It's
okay. I'm ready. Sorry.
All right, buddy. Well, we're gonna go ahead and sign off. But listen, thank you again for making my Friday night. And happy Father's Day to all of you out there, and happy B&B Day as well, whenever that is going to happen. So, all right, guys, we'll talk soon. Thanks again, Henrik.
You're welcome.
Oh, wait, we didn't, Mari.
Yeah.
How's the chat?
I was just going to tell you how I'm looking forward to Father's Day, Jake.
Oh, my God. Put the kids to bed, folks. We got to go. We'll talk soon.